Hey, I'm Sarah Gonzalez. Welcome to the news and why it matters. Stu, what was the top story?
Just getting excited for my Worthington's protein loaf, making up for, as everyone does, traditional Thanksgiving meal.
I'm sorry, what?
Worthington's protein loaf. That's right. Today's show brought to you by Worthington's protein loaf.
Oh,
it's a protein loaf that kind of looks a little like turkey if you put it in a loaf. It's great. You'll love it.
Is it like rectangular?
It is kind of rectangular. Yeah, it looks like a loaf of bread, kind of, except it's made out of a turkey-ish substance that's not turkey. Actually,
you're not hard selling.
No, I know. I think it's funny because it's like the worst possible thing you could call something is a protein loaf. It sounds terrible. Actually, that stuff is pretty good.
Why did you even try it?
Well, I'm a vegetarian, as you know.
Yeah, but you're like, oh, protein loaf.
Yeah.
Ooh,
well,
yes,
someone I knew who's also a vegetarian had it before and was like, it's actually good. And I looked at it and like, that doesn't look good. But then they made it up. I was like, it's actually pretty good. I actually made Pat Gray eat this. Now, Pat Gray, who has never eaten anything that isn't meat before.
Right.
Like even the potatoes, he just mixes like hamburger in just to make sure it's partially meat. And he actually liked that one. He said it was actually pretty good, which was shocking to me.
You sure you just haven't forgotten like what food tastes like?
Actually tastes like.
Well, that's kind of my belief all the time. But if Pat would eat it,
it's true.
It's got to be true.
It's true.
Actually, my top story. I thought we're going into the holiday here. How about some actual freaking good news? I've got some good freaking news.
And not a coincidence that Glenn isn't here today, and we have good news.
Yes.
I just want to point that out.
I'm going to avoid the despair for the next couple of minutes.
Yes. All right, Jason Buttrell.
I just want to point out tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and more importantly, the Cowboys will be taking over the NFC East because we did beat the Eagles. Just want to point that back out again.
Bold prediction.
But we will be winning tomorrow and taking control in the driver's seat. We're not letting up. Yeah, and there's
this confidence of the Cowboys fans.
I am not one of those.
No, it's like all of a sudden you've won 2 games in like really tight, close games.
That's the MO of Cowboys
yes,
fans.
that is.
You know, when you've won like 6 or 7 Super Bowls, you tend to get cocky.
You tell me when you get there and you let me know.
Right.
You tell me when you get to 6 or 7.
Hold on to that one.
By the way, I will. Well, I realize this isn't happening again in my lifetime, so I'm sitting back.
What's your real top story?
Oh yeah, another Cuban Missile Crisis, part 2, maybe.
Okay.
So we're all doing good news today.
Yeah. Oh yeah, correct.
And Jason Howerton back with us.
Yeah, I want to go over the very serious report, very serious evidence that all people who own an AR-15 are indeed terrorists. So.
Oh wow.
Oh.
It's very real and very serious. So we need to talk about this.
Yeah, we really need to get into that then, if that's the case. Before we do that, I want to thank our sponsor, Brick House. I actually was out of coffee this morning, and I thought that I might die until I remembered that I had From Dawn to Dusk, which is their supplement that you can take to give you energy, but you don't get the jittery feeling that you get when you drink like 6 cups of coffee. So that is keeping me alive today. They also have Field of Greens, which is much more desirable, I think, to gentlemen like maybe the ones sitting at this table, to get their vegetables in, perhaps a smoothie or even milk. Yeah. Or just some sort of liquid form that tastes good.
Yeah, you can also mix it with food too.
Yes.
Switch you're having soup or something like that. It's a good addition.
Ice cream.
Little protein loaf. Sprinkle some of that on the protein loaf.
It's a good question. I should put.
Try that.
I'm totally doing this. Field of Greens on the Thanksgiving dinner. I love it.
But it tastes great. Yeah. So it doesn't taste like you're eating vegetables, which is why people don't eat them, because they don't like the taste, because you guys are crazy, because I love vegetables. But for some reason, you guys don't like the taste of them. Even the vegetarian over here, Mr. Vegetarian who hates vegetables.
Well, I mean, French fries, I think.
It's not, that doesn't count.
Onion rings?
No, that doesn't count.
I'll go with that, yeah.
Okay, onion rings.
I eat vegetables then.
Great. With ketchup.
No.
That's tomato,
That's so true.
which is a fruit.
No, wives, you need to get this for your husbands so that they drink their vegetables instead of eat them, because we all know they're not going to actually eat them. You can go to brickhouseblaze.com, use promo code GREENS for 15% off your first order, or you can text GREENS to 41411. Really great way to supplement your meal. All right, Stu, good news.
Yeah, good news. Matt Ridley, who's great, he does some stuff for Reason, but he wrote a book called The Rational Optimist, which is one of my favorite books. I've mentioned it on the show before. But he wrote a piece, and I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, which was about why it's so cool to be gloomy. And he goes through a lot of like this kind of psychological measures of this, and that like people who, given the choice in sort of randomized experiments, will generally they'll navigate their way to the bad news over and over and over and over again. Even when they say in writing that they want good news and they don't want bad news, it's not true. They actually want good news, and it's part of whatever makeup physiologically that we have. And I think it's best illustrated by so many of the positive things that have gone on in the world that we never notice and never talk about. For example, actually I've got a prop.
Oh, wow.
This book here is another book I would recommend.
I was about to say you're not allowed to bring props, but
this one you are, because
make an exception.
Yes, Glenn Beck's Addicted to Outrage. And there's a great part in here just talking about the realities of what we have seen in recent history. Globally, the rate of children dying before the age of 5. I mean, there's nothing that could make you, that could be more terrible, right, like than this. Innocent children dying before the age of 5. That has dropped by half since 1990. Since 1990, in our lifetimes, dropped by half. It's a miracle. Remember all the shows back in the 80s and 90s, We Are the World, and everyone's singing and making these songs, and it's all about like government and people donating money for aid. It's not really what did it. It was capitalism and the free market and free trade spreading across the globe. And that is, so it's dropped by half. And I think that's fascinating. In Matt Ridley's article, column, he writes about how a professor asked, I think it was like 1,200 students over multiple years, one question as they came in and they started the class, which was, do you believe poverty has doubled or been cut in half in the last 20 years? Obviously, we know the answer, it's been cut in half. 95% of people said it had doubled. Wow. That is how insane it is. People are completely disconnected and so drawn to negative news. But listen to the breakdown of this. This is the equivalent of averting 27 major plane crashes filled entirely with children every single day.
Wow.
And think about when one plane crash happens, CNN will cover it for like 9 months looking for we found a wheel. I mean, this will go on for months. 27 a day averted because of this. And even to the point of our politics. Like if you think of two major issues that conservatives and liberals talk about, liberals talking about gun violence all the time, conservatives talk about abortion all the time. To put this into perspective, if you happen to be in the pro-life persuasion, you probably fought hard to stop the funding of Planned Parenthood. You probably want the doors shuttered immediately. However, you would have to eliminate the number of abortions that occur annually because of Planned Parenthood more than 19 times to make the equivalent of just this improvement. But don't worry, progressives, if you have been fighting to repeal the Second Amendment with the hopes of stopping all gun-related homicide, we have more good news. This incredible global life-saving achievement is the equivalent to more than 630 years of gun-related murders. Wow. And we never mention it. It's something that, as the story pointed out, 95% of people apparently don't even know. These are miracles. Miracles. I mean, I'm a very, very big believer that the capitalism is a gift from God. It really is It is, if you read Jonah Goldberg's most recent book, Suicide of the West, which has a really negative title but is a pretty positive book, he goes over this and he calls it the miracle. And I really think it's an appropriate thing. I think if we went back to 1990 and said, hey, we've got this new government program, or we've got this new charitable action that we can all come together and in 20, I think it's about 25 years, I think it's 2015 or 16 are the numbers, 25 years, we are going to cut poverty by half. But the children dying before the age of 5 will be cut by half. I mean, disease after disease after disease eliminated, and all of these wonderful improvements that we've seen over the past quarter century. Everyone would have signed up for that deal. Everyone would have said, this is a miracle, it's not possible. And yet it's happened. It's happened largely because of the spread of capitalism and free market, and free trade, and specialization. Those things have changed the world for the better, and we're seeing people being able to live their lives and not have to struggle as often. And all we do is focus on how terrible things are. So when you go into Thanksgiving tomorrow, take a minute and give thanks for that, because it's probably something that most people haven't thought about. But I honestly cannot think of something that is more incredible that we have dealt with in my lifetime. It has been the greatest. I think it's Arthur Brooks who says this, not Albert Brooks. That would be weird. It was a movie. But Arthur Brooks says that this is the greatest human achievement when it comes to poverty that has ever been occurred on our planet, and it's happened within our lifetime, and we never notice it. Tomorrow, take a minute to notice it.
Yeah, but what about the last thing that Trump tweeted?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, wouldn't you think, like, in a sensible world, like, these things would be covered a lot more closely than whatever Trump tweets last, and it's not. They'll spend hours, like, obsessing. We did that clip yesterday of Dan Crenshaw, who was trying to get them to even point out one minor thing. One reporter can't go in. Jim Acosta can't get his face on TV as much, which is something we should all pray for. It'd be another miracle. But you know, like that is like, that'll take up days and days and days of coverage. This stuff is real. It's happened. People, 17,000 children who used to die are alive every day. It's an incredible miracle, and we should appreciate it more.
I'm sure we won't.
I know, but I'm making my case.
I will.
Yeah, well, okay.
We will at this table.
You made one
America,
convert.
please join us. All right, Jason Buttrell. Next Cuban Missile Crisis.
Now bring us down.
Yeah,
Bring us
I
down.
know. Thank you for the
I don't want to follow that
with
with this story. So this is one of those like fantastical things that the Russians said. But so going back a few weeks, I don't know if you remember, but the Trump administration had talked about pulling out of the Intermediate Range Ballistic Missile Treaty with Russia. And if that happens, there could be other, you know, ballistic missile treaties that could go down as well. Before I launch into this, let me just say that ballistic missile treaties haven't stopped nuclear war. Nuclear weapons have stopped nuclear war. Mm-hmm. Nuclear weapons are the only weapons that we develop that are in any country's arsenal that with the sole intention of never using them. I don't want to throw out percentages, but people are not stupid. They're not going to basically invite their own destruction.
The deterrent is real.
Right, exactly. And the intermediate range missiles, that was just ridiculous as well. I mean, so that whole argument was based off they didn't want to have these intermediate range missiles that were like, you know, in Western Russia, they could strike France and Germany and all that stuff, which is dumb because they already have the capability via ICBMs to hit all those places anyway. Yeah. So it really didn't matter. That was just another small little thing. Anyway, so this Russian general just said that if we did pull out of that ballistic missile treaty, that Putin will have no other option but to take nuclear weapons and put them on Cuba. So basically restarting the whole Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's funny to me. It's stupid, really, because every time there is a big, it's not about what the nuclear weapons about Cuba striking the United States with nuclear weapons. That's just dumb. It's never going to happen. And a lot of people always ask me, like, what is the importance of Cuba? Like, why are we always so obsessed with the island of Cuba? And it's not that it's so close to the United States. It's its proximity where it is. And this is kind of a cool story. If I can nerd out really quick, I'll try to do it really fast. But that area, the reason why we became so obsessed with Cuba actually started during the War of 1812. So when the British burnt down Washington, famously burnt down the White House, they thought that they were going to cripple the United States. Like, we got them. They were thinking like in this kind of European mold. They took out our capital and we were done. What they failed to realize later was that, oh, wait a minute, the economy's still chugging along. It's almost like these people don't care about this swamp with this White House here. Like, this is not really America. And so they figured that out, and so around 1814, towards the end of 1814, they sailed past Cuba and went all the way down to Louisiana to knock out the Mississippi, the ports, all those areas. Andrew Jackson famously led an army down there, defeated them, and then the rest is history. But that was a lesson learned by a lot of countries that whoever controls Cuba, whoever goes down through there, they can cripple the United States by shutting off our lifeblood, our economy. To this day, in terms of tonnage, the most amount of tonnage that flows out of the United States or into the United States is still that corridor. Texas, Louisiana, that whole area that runs straight through Cuba. So if you want to cripple us, you threaten Cuba. Now that's what this is all about. Nuclear weapons are not going back to Cuba. It's just not going to happen, but that's just Russia telling us, look, we have options. If you really want to continue messing with us, we know of different levers that we can pull, which would probably be Russian warships going to Cuba, which could threaten a blockade eventually. Mm-hmm. So it's a bunch of nerdy stuff, but it's something I've been wanting to say for a while because a lot of people just don't understand what is so crucial about Cuba, what it means to us. It's actually the same exact reason why we're trying to, the islands that we have around China and what ticks China off and like why we're there, it's the same exact reason. Those little islands, we can do a blockade and stop them and cripple their economy.
Glenn Jr. over here really brought us down.
I think
but the bright side, the nukes are not going to Cuba.
Leave us on the bright side.
We're good. Right. Okay. I say too, bright side of nuclear deterrent. I mean, I think that's one of the things we've found over the past decades is that the amount of people dying in war has dropped dramatically. And I really think a big part of that is nuclear deterrent. Like, you don't want to get into a world war anymore because that does not turn out well, as we've seen. And so instead of having millions and millions and millions of people dying with conventional weapons, we're all scared to death of dying of a nuclear weapon. And that has dropped dramatically over the years. I'm going to bring this all back to positive today. I don't care. I'm doing it.
Back in a minute. Now you'll get your chance,
Yes.
Jason, to bring us back down.
No, mine's happy.
Okay, good.
Before we get into gun owners all being terrorists, I want to thank our sponsor, Riduzone.
Oh, I was going to see if it was iTarget Pro. It would have fit perfectly.
That would have fit perfectly.
But so does Riduzone, of course.
Yeah.
And this time, especially the day before Thanksgiving.
That's where it
When you really
fits
need it.
perfectly right now this time of year because we're all about to go out, eat a bunch of food, gain a bunch of weight.
Oh yeah.
And you don't want to do that. You want to at least limit it, if not just fend it off completely.
Let's talk about reality here for a second. Don't listen to Sarah on this stuff. She's too under control to be valuable in this conversation. You will actually be good on Thanksgiving. I think this is important for like the days after. Like you've got the leftovers, you got everything piled up. You could be eating the entire weekend easily. Make it a Thursday to Sunday thing like I usually do. This is the way to you can limit that.
Right. Yeah, you can limit that.
Or
yes.
just don't limit it. Gorge yourself all those days.
But then Monday.
Then go, exactly.
Or Monday. You can do it too.
I mean, I don't recommend that.
Or wait like 2 weeks of eating and then come back like 3 Mondays later and it'll help then.
Like we keep adding several days to weeks onto it.
Riduzone you need to help you either whether you want to lose weight or you just want to keep the weight off, you just want to maintain. It helps boost your metabolism, help you feel full longer. I swear by it. I take it all the time, and it's been great for me since I've lost weight. So you can go to riduzone.com. That's RIDUZONE.com. Get 30% off of a 3-month supply by using promo code THEBLAZE. It's like $1.39 a day. That's totally worth it. And then maybe it'll keep you from having to then put a New Year's resolution out of having to lose the weight that you just gained. All
I
right.
wish you would put your picture back up again, to be honest.
Do you want to see it?
I actually do.
Can we pull that? Can we pull my picture back up?
Just for anyone who
Mr.
didn't see
Director, there it
there you
is.
go.
There it is. Yeah, that was me, the number 10.
See, yeah, I still.
It's me. I promise. Look, same smile. It's me.
I just don't believe you, but it's okay. It's okay that I don't believe you. I just don't.
All right, Jason. So you said all gun owners are mass murderers?
Yeah, it's a new report that's out, and it's actually terrifying because it's from a Newsweek writer, so you know it's really really serious.
Wow, that's really convincing.
Yes, I know.
Can we pull up the tweet?
Yes, I don't want that. I want the tweet from her name is Nina. I think it's Burley or Burley. I don't know how she wants to say her name, but if you missed it, Eric Swalwell. What did he say his stupid name? He's a Democrat. Basically, joked that we could just nuke people who didn't want to get their guns confiscated.
Which is not only not funny, it's also that would not
Totally
work well.
normal thing to do as a congressman, and
it's not a good method.
But surprisingly, it didn't get much attention, right?
Again, like if imagine Trump made that point.
God.
I mean,
So we can do that again,
yeah,
but whatever.
I know.
So, so what ended up happening after that? So this is a response to one of it's like a quote tweet to one of Swalwell's nuke explanations, because obviously you need to explain when you threaten to nuke gun owners. And she says, almost every single person I've ever heard of with an AR-15 has been a mass murderer. based on Twitter, based on a tweet. Then wait, hold on. Then she takes a sample, a scientific sample.
Oh yes.
And based on her Twitter sample, the rest of them are scarily paranoid. Get on the right side of history. At DLash, at Rambo Biggs, hashtag gun sense.
Gun sense.
What's a Twitter sample?
Yeah.
Do you want anything to prove your point based off of what's said on Twitter?
Right.
I mean, no, probably
all
not.
doomed
I
not
know.
to
If my
Twitter
Twitter
is-
sample is based on my mentions, then we are extinct in a decade.
Yeah.
That's what I know. But all that proves, again, Newsweek writer, lives in a bubble, has no friends who own guns, doesn't get the culture, doesn't know who we are, doesn't care to know who we are. She sees a gun, she sees a terrorist, so therefore I'm a terrorist in her eyes, and that's just that's why we never get anything done. Like, and I'm a Texas guy. Like, I'm a carry guy. I usually carry. I'm not carrying here, so everybody calm down. But I'm a carry.
You're in Texas. No one's nervous about that.
I'm a carry guy. I'm a pro-gun guy, and even I am open to some sort of regulations. I am. Like, if you can show me on paper, if we do this, X, Y, Z will happen. This is how crime will go down. Not just.
That's the important thing.
Not
is
just
showing it on
right.
paper.
I need to see some data, and then I'm open to say that. But we can never get there because this is what we start with. We start with AR-15. You're a terrorist if you own one, and then everybody gets mad and everybody starts yelling at each other, and then nothing ever happens. And she's part of the problem, and I'm sure she knows it, but doesn't care. And it's just frustrating, especially as a gun owner.
Did you see Rose McGowan's tweet about mental health?
Yes, I did.
Did you? She said, and we don't have it, but this just made me think of it. She said something along the lines of, you can keep your guns. I don't want to argue for gun control, but I do want to address the mental health issues that we have and getting people the resources that they need and coming together at least on that so that you can keep your guns. Can we all agree on that? And I was like, yeah.
Good.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just seen recently there was someone who I know who has been like involuntarily committed 3 different times can still go purchase a firearm.
Right, like
because there are certain things that they have to do while they're committed. A judge has to adjudicate it before they don't just automatically go into a system when they have mental health issues like that.
Yeah, I mean,
it
makes me nervous.
Slope,
I mean,
right,
again, like we've seen so many of these cases where when these things get, because like people obviously you want to be safe. You want your society to be as effective as possible in preventing violence. And I think like that's why these areas I think make sense to approach because you're not going to have the gun debate going on. It's not part of the gun debate, right? Like security shouldn't be part of the gun debate. Health, mental health shouldn't be part of the gun debate. Those are separate things that will help the gun debate, but will help a million other things too, right? I mean, like those are just good ideas. I get nervous when we start talking about some of these because we've seen so many times how governments use them. They say, okay, well, you know what? You took depression medicine 12 years ago, and I'm sorry, like you've got that prescription, and it's on our records. And
they use it to take guns away from old people. Crying out loud.
They do it to military a lot. I mean,
PTSD scares the crap out of me because almost every single veteran over the past 10 years has got some form of PTSD or that they've marked it down. I've talked about that before.
Glenn's talked about talking to a lot of veterans about when you come back. And Jason, maybe you can speak to this more accurately than I'm about to. But he always tells the story of like people come back from war, and if they are having some issues and they're not exactly sure what it is, if they're willing to kind of commit to to a PTSD sort of diagnosis and go down that road, it's easier for them to get resources. So some people are like convinced to say, okay, well maybe I'll entertain that more often, and then they cross that line of of having that on their record, and then if a law that could go after that could restrict the rights of people.
You know what happens to a lot of kids too that they don't know when parents take their kids for counseling or for therapy, and if you go through insurance, it then becomes part of their record. So then you have to think, okay, well, does that count too? Like, and parents don't even know that they're doing that. So I do think it's really slippery. A lot of what we've seen though with shootings.
Some of them are so obvious.
A lot of them, there are signs, but they're not being put into the proper systems.
So many signs missed, so many balls dropped. It's like, can we clean up that first before we talk about
the low-hanging fruit
right?
is easy, right?
And it seems like every time there are these incidents where they're known and they're a risk, and sometimes they're not supposed to have guns. Sometimes they steal their parents' guns, right? Like it's just such a tough thing. But we got to start at least from like step 1, and we can't even get there. We can't even get to step 1.
And to her tweet too. I mean, isn't the AR-15 the most popular modern sporting rifle in America? Like, I mean,
that's because we have a lot of mass murders in this country.
Okay.
So it's a big issue.
And
I'm glad we got to take a break.
No.
Yeah. I'm glad that we addressed.
Super hot take.
Hot take.
You always have a super hot take. Jason, what was your super hot take?
I was just going to say that the AR-15, there's something special about the weapon. There's nothing special about the AR-15 at all. Yeah. There's other more deadly weapons that you can get.
Michael Bloomberg said it can go.
That's ridiculous.
Fully automatic.
So basically what they're asking for is a ban on semi-automatic weapons. That's eventually where it gets to when we're talking about semi-automatic.
Which is like pretty much everything.
That take was hot.
Yeah,
I told you.
Hey,
be careful.
Are you going back out on tour?
Yes, we're going to be in Florida in a couple weeks. So go to glennbeck.com/tour, Tampa and Orlando. I think it's November 30th and December 1st or something. So go check that out. It'll be fun. It's a fun night.
Yeah. But you're going to be there? Because I don't. If you're there, I don't know if I want to buy a ticket.
Guess I don't have to go. I mean, if it's going to help ticket sales, I could just stay home.
We'll see you in overtime.
What is it?